Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In my previous video, I have talked about drafting, pleading and conveyancing, what are their meanings and how they are different from each other. The link is provided in the description box for the same. In this video, I am going to talk about the next topic under this subject, that is deeds. What do we mean by deeds? What are its different components and how do we draft a particular deed? So let's take a look at our index. So in this video, we will be discussing the meanings and features of a deed, deed versus agreement, that how deed is different from agreement, what are different types of deeds, components of a deeds and a sample deed. Let's get started. First of all, we have the term in front of us is the deed. So deed is the term which is normally used to describe all the instruments. Now by here I mean all the instrument. It can be an agreement, it can be a contract, it can be a mortgage deed, or it can be anything by which two or more persons agree to effect any right and liability. Now this is a very important term that we have to focus on. Effect any right or liability. What do we mean by this term? By this term we mean that when you sign a particular deed or you enter into a particular contract, you will either create a right for yourself or you will either create a liability for yourself. So deed is an instrument through which a person creates a right or a liability. Let's take a look at a formal definition of the term deed. A deed may be defined as a formal writing of a non-testamentary character. I'll tell you the meaning of this term, non-testamentary character, which purports or operates to create, declare, confirm, assign, limit or extinguish some rights, title and interest. So we will break the definitions into few parts and try to understand the meaning of deed. So first of all, they are saying that deed may be defined as a formal writing. So basically deed should be in the writing form. It cannot be in the oral form. You cannot say that I have a sale of deed in the oral form. It should be written and it should be formally written. Of a non-testamentary character. Now non-testamentary here means that any document other than will, because will is the only document which is called testamentary document. So any other document other than will is known as a non-testamentary document. Now the next part is which purports or operates to create, declare, confirm, assign, limit or extinguish. Now it can either create or extinguish any right or liability for a particular person. For example, if I am making a sale deed, right? Now I am making a sale deed. In sale deed, there will be one buyer and one seller. The person who will be buying the property will now have the right over the property, but now he has a liability. And what is that liability? His liability is to pay consideration to the seller for that particular property. Purchaser is buying that property for some consideration, right? So purchaser has a right over the property, but his liability is to pay the particular money. So that sale deed has created some right and liabilities. Next, we will take a definition, a proper definition of deed, and that is a deed is a special type of a binding promise or a commitment to carry out an act. Again, I'll read it. A deed is a special type of a binding promise. The parties are promising each other that we will do a particular act. Through a particular deed, what we understand is that you are binding yourself. And you are binding yourself for what? That is providing to pass a legal or equitable interest in a property. For example, if I am making a lease deed, that means that I am passing a right of possession to the person to whom I am lending my property. It creates a binding obligation upon the person. This is also correct. That person will be binded by that deed. And affirm an agreement that passes a legal equitable. Again, that is the same meaning, that you are basically making a document through which you are creating a right or a liability. So now I think you have understand the meaning and definition of the term deed. Again, I will just give a summarized view of it. So basically, definition of a deed means that it is an instrument which creates a particular right or liability for a person. Next we have with us is the features of deed. Now what are the features? That first of all, it should be in writing. The deed that you are making should be in writing, it cannot be oral. It should be signed by both the parties. Both the parties should attach their signature to signify that yes, they form part of this particular deed. It should be expressed to be a deed. Now when I will show you an example that what is a deed, it will be clearly mentioned that it is a sale of agreement, it is a deed of mortgage. So all the things will be clearly expressed in it. Now it should be supported by the evidence that party intend to execute the document as a deed and be legally bound by it. If I have to give you one word for it, it will be that parties have the intention to enter into a contract or a deed. So a person cannot be forced to be part of a deed, because that will make it void. Void means it will not be binding upon the party. The parties must have intention to enter into it. It should be delivered to the other party. It's not like that if you have made a particular deed, you can keep it. No, you have to deliver to other party as well. Now, other party should also be aware about the deed. So it should be delivered, and it should be witnessed by at least one person. Now it totally depends upon types of deed. Some of the deeds needs to be witnessed by one or more person. Now who is a witness here? Witness here is the person who is not a party to the contract, but he will make sure that the parties who are part of this deed have actually entered it lawfully. So the person will witness, and witness will have to sign as well. Moving forward, deed versus agreement. Now it has happened in the past as well that people tend to confuse between the term deed and agreement. They think that these terms are same. First of all, I would like to tell you that deed is a wider term. Deed is a wider term and agreement is a part of deed. Not all the deeds are agreement, but all the agreements are part of a deeds. So as you can see that deed has a wider horizon. On the other hand, agreement is a part of it. And the main difference between both deed and agreement is consideration. So there is no requirement for consideration in a deed to be binding. However, if we talk about an agreement, consideration is an essential part of an agreement to make it binding. Now if you will read this line, I'll read it for you, then you will get a better idea about the differences between both the terms. So let's read it. That deed does not need consideration because of the idea that the deed is the most solemn indication that the parties are intended to be bound. What they are trying to say here is that for a deed you don't need a consideration. When a party enter into a particular deed, it shows that they want to bind themselves by this particular deed or that particular contract. However, when we talk about contract, in contract the consideration is necessary because consideration forms a stem for an agreement. The parties need consideration to show that they have bought that particular promise by doing some act. So I'll simplify it for you. The deed does not require consideration to make it binding. However, consideration is an essential part of an agreement to be binding upon the parties. And I have given an example that deed, you can take an example of gift deed. Why I have specifically used the gift deed here? Because gift deed does not include any consideration, right? Because if I am making a gift to someone, that should not have any consideration, because if it has a consideration then it will not be a gift, it will be buying and selling agreement basically. However, agreement on the other hand needs consideration to be binding. And just for your information, it is not part of the slide, but I think the people should know that what is the difference between agreement and contract. So now agreement, when it is lawfully binding and when it is lawfully applicable upon the person, it becomes a contract. So contract is a specific type of a agreement which is legally binding upon the parties. Now moving forward, we will talk about different types of deeds. Deeds can be classified into many categories. I have tried to note down the most famous types of deed which people find in their day-to-day lives. First is lawful deed, then deed poll, and indenture deed. As you can see that I have specifically highlighted the word O in both these. we'll understand that why we have done this particular thing. So we'll understand their meaning one by one. Moving forward, first of all, we have the term lawful deed. I'll give you simple meaning of that. Lawful deed simply means that this particular deed is not contrary to any law or public policy, and it should be not void ab initio. For example, if I am making a particular deed with a person who is not in the capacity to make a particular deed, or who cannot be part of a particular deed, so that will not be a lawful deed. The essentials of a contract or a lawful, if you talk about essentials of a contract, they are provided in a section 10 of Indian Contract Act, and those are the lawful items that you should have. For example, the parties should be in capacity to make the contract, right? The other important thing, that it should be in the writing form, it should be signed. So then in that case it will be a lawful deed. So let's understand its meaning. A deed made by a lawful person, as I have already mentioned, that who has the capacity to make that particular deed, which is not contrary to law, public policy, void ab initio or unlawful. For example, you cannot make a deed to murder a person because that will be unlawful. That deed is not correct, right? So the lawful deed in its substance, by substance I mean that all the points that will be mentioned in the deed is sanctioned or justified by the law. It does not include those deeds which are made under influence, fraud or coercion. The deed should be made in the free will by the parties. Now the next term we have is with us, deed poll. Now the word here is poll, a deed which is made and executed by single party. There is no two parties involved in this particular deed. Can you take a guess that what type of a instrument or a deed will only have one party? That is power of attorney. Power of attorney is a deed where one person authorizes another person to do particular acts for himself. He authorized that person to do that act on his behalf. That is called power of attorney. So power of attorney is made by only one person. That is why it is called deed poll. And if we talk about deed pool means a deed between two or more parties, and where as many copies are made as there are parties. So generally all the deeds which are formed are deed pool because there are two or more parties involved in it. For example, if I am making a lease deed and there are 2-3 parties involved in it, so it will be called a deed pool, and I'll make sure that if there are 4 parties, then there should be at least 4 copies of that deed. Each party should have a possession of a copy. As I have already mentioned in the features as well, that it should be delivered to each party. Each party should have a copy of it. So why I highlighted that term O and double O in that previous slide was that because it is made by single party and it is single O, and there are 2 or more parties and there are double O. It's just basically a way to you remember that deed poll has only one party and deed pool has 2 or more parties. Now indenture deed. I don't think you have seen this deed ever before, but you must have heard about it. The reason behind is that this deed is no longer applicable anywhere in the world. It used to be in England, but not anymore. This definition basically provides that a deed is called an indenture because the deed was cut and indented for the purpose of tally. Now, in the past, there was a way to secure a particular document. And how do they do that? They used to write a particular sets of facts. For example, they used to write 2 copies of a deed upon the same piece of paper. For example, I have a piece of paper. I'll write my terms here as well as here. So in the video as well, you can see that they are writing terms here and here. And then after writing the term, they used to cut the paper into half. As you can see that the paper is cut into half here, and some of the terms will be form part of this portion and some terms will form part of this. So unless these 2 parts are put together, the agreement will not be completed. So one party used to keep this with it and the other party used to keep this with it. So that is why when they wanted to check that whether their document is secured and it is an authentic document, so what they used to do, they used to merge those document from the person which is cut, because if it is an original document, the cut portion will be matched equally. So I think if we now look at the definition of this, you will get a better idea. The old practice was to write two copies of a deed, two copies by here, these two copies of a deed upon the same piece of paper, and thereafter that piece of paper was cut into such a way as to leave half of the terms in one copy and half in another copy. So this is an old type of a indenture deed, as you can see. Now moving forward, so this is a sample agreement in front of us, agreement for sale. Why I have used this particular agreement for sale is to show you that the components for a deed and an agreement for sale or any other agreement are mostly same. Most of the general agreements or deed that you will make will have similar types of component between them. I know that by looking at this particular video you will not be able to understand that what are the different types of components, but just take a look at it right now. Try to analyze this particular slide and then we will discuss each and every component with an example, and after that you will get a better idea about it. So I'm just giving a simple reading for it, that this agreement of sale executed on this particular date between party this and party this, whereas this party is owner of property and the other party is willing to buy. The parties to sale have agreed to all these terms in witness whereof. I understand these terms, you will not be able to understand these terms right now, but once we will understand the components of a deed, you will get a better idea about. So let's get forward and understand what are the different components of the deed. So these are the different components of a deed which you can find in most of the deeds that you will ever draft or execute. Now first of all, we have description of the title deed, the place and date of execution, description of parties, recital, testatum, consideration, receipt clause, parcel, exception, reservation. I know that some of these terms sound very technical, right? Testatum, habendum, redendum, covenants and undertaking, but believe me, they are very simple to understand, and once you get an idea about it, you will find that drafting of a deed is not a very difficult task if you have an idea about all the components. One thing that I want you to understand is that in total there are total 18 components of a deed, but it is not necessary that every deed should have all these 18 points. It is possible that some of the deed might have 10 components, some have 15. It totally depends upon the type of a deed that you are making. So let's get forward and understand each and every term one by one. First of all, we have in front of us is the description of the title deed. Now when you start writing a particular deed, first thing that you have to mention is that what type of a deed you are making. Whether it's a sale deed, it's a gift deed, it's a mortgage deed, it's a exchange deed, that should be clearly mentioned. So a deed usually begins with the name of the deed. As such, the deed should contain the correct title. For example, the deed of sale, the deed of mortgage, the deed of lease, etc. In our deed that we were discussing in the previous slide, the word was the agreement to sale. So they have mentioned this particular component. So part 1 is completed. They have given the description of the title deed. And what is the description in our case, in our agreement? That is agreement to sale. So they have given the description, first component done. Moving forward, next you have to mention the place and date of execution of a deed, that at which place you are executing a particular deed and what is the date for it. Now mentioning of a place is very important for a particular deed, reason being because it helps you deciding the territorial and legal jurisdiction of a document to its registration and for claiming legal remedies. For example, if I am making a sale deed with a person in New Delhi, then if someday if I have some grievance with regards to particular deed and I want to go to court of law, so which court of law I should go? I will go to the court of law of New Delhi, reason being the sale deed was executed in Delhi. So it is very important to mention your place and date of execution. Now let's see that whether in our agreement to sale, what we have seen before, that whether we have mentioned that on which particular date. So it is written that it is executed on this day of this. So they have clearly mentioned that this agreement is made on this particular date, and I think they have missed out the point of at which particular place, but it should be mentioned. So they have not mentioned it here, but it should be clearly mentioned that it is executed in which particular part of a state. So I'll just give you an example for it, that this deed of lease made at New Delhi on 1st December 1099 899, that is basically 1st December 1988. So this is how you mention the second part. So first part is you give the description of the title deed. Second, you mention place and date of execution of the deed. I'll just merge it into one line, that this agreement of sale executed on 10th March 2021 at New Delhi. So these are the two components which we have mentioned. Moving forward, we give the description of parties of the deed. Now it is very important to mention that who are the party to the deed, and we should give their complete information. By complete information, you can mention that that particular person is son of Mr. XYZ and is residents of ABC place. This is how you can mention it. Let's see in our agreement to sale that whether we have mentioned the parties. We have written that between S, right, they have mentioned son of Mr. this, resident of this particular place. By resident, you mean to give your permanent or current residential address, you can mention it. And similarly for the other party you have to mention as well, that is and Mr. P, son of this, resident of this. There is one thing that you should also mention in a deed, is that for that particular person will be called again and again in that particular deed. For example, if I am talking about a sale deed, one party will be called buyer and one party will be called seller. So how do we write? I'll just give you a frame for that. That this particular sale of deed or agreement to sale is executed on this particular day at New Delhi between S, son of Mr. this, resident of this particular place, herein after called the vendor. Now it is important, you can use the word vendor or purchaser as you like it. So the vendor is the term. See, each contract or deed will have parties and have their name with it. You can, if it's a, let's say if we talk about lease deed, there will be lessor and lessee. If we talk about mortgage deed, there will be mortgager or mortgagee. So first of all, what you need to do is you just mention their name. You mention that Mr. X, herein after for this particular deed we will call him mortgager. For this particular deed we will call him mortgagee. So this is how you give description of the parties. Names come first, then the surname, and thereafter the address, followed by other descriptions such as son of, wife of, daughter of, etc. So I think we are cleared with this part. Recitals. This was the fourth component, and this is one of the most important component for any deed. What is recital? By the term recital, I mean that before entering into the deed, you need to give a background, and by that mean a story about the parties, a story about why you are entering into this particular agreement. You need to mention that what is your intention before entering into this agreement and why are you entering into this particular agreement. I'll read it for you and then I'll give you an example for it. So let's start from here. Recital contains the short story of the property up to its vesting to its transferor. Recital may be of two types. One is narrative recitals and the other is the introductory. So narrative recitals which relates to the history of the property transferred. For example, if I am the owner of the property, in the recital I will mention that I am the property of the owner and I have acquired it by whatever way. For example, if I have acquired it my father in the year, let's say 1999, so I'll mention it. So you will give a background about that particular property and you will mention that this is my property, this is located at this particular place. So you are giving an idea about the property. That is called a narrative recitals. And other than this is the introductory recital. In the introductory recital, you mention that what is the motive or your intention behind this execution of a deed. You mention that why you are entering into this particular agreement between the parties and what is your intention behind this. For example, my intention, if let's say I am a buyer of the property, my intention is to buy a particular property. If I am a seller, my intention is to sell that particular property for consideration. So that is called an introductory recital. So recitals are divided into two parts, in narrative and introductory. In narrative, you will give the description of the property or otherwise. In the introductory recital, you will mention your motive, that why you are entering into this particular agreement. And how do we write in narratives or introductory recitals? We started by the term whereas. So now let's take a look at our agreement. In our agreement, you can see that we have mentioned the term whereas. As you can also see that recital generally begins with the term whereas, and when there are several recitals, instead of repeating the word whereas, before each one of them is used. For example, let's see here. Whereas, now these are the recitals, these two are the recitals here. Whereas the vendor is the sole and absolute owner of the property set out in the schedule. Now they are mentioning that vendor is the sole owner of the property. They are giving a background of it. Why? Because in the upper part we have mentioned that the parties are entering into contract. And why they are entering into contract? Because vendor is an absolute owner of a property, and whereas it is agreed between the vendor and the purchaser that they want to sell or buy that particular property for a consideration. So now this is your introductory recital, this purchase part. They are showing their intention that they want to sell and they want to buy a particular property. So these are your recitals. So it is important that you mention recitals, and you should always use the term whereas. For every point that you are mentioning, you should mention whereas. So let's move forward now. So now we will see the other components of a deed, and first of all we have now testatum. Testatum, basically you can see in this agreement that this particular thing is called testatum. We have understood all these components before testatum, that what is the title, description, recitals, and next thing is now we are trying to discuss the terms and conditions of the deed, that what this deed actually means, that what all rights and liabilities we are going to set up for each and other party. So for that we mentioned this, that now this particular agreement or this particular deed witnesseth as follows, that now we are witnessing that these are the particular terms and conditions which the parties are agreeing to. So it is very important to mention this line. You should remember it by heart, that now this agreement witnesseth as follows. See, this is an example. You can use this word. Okay. Now we are starting with the other components. All these components are the different terms of a deed. First of all, consideration and receipt. By consideration, I mean that if you are entering into a contract which involves some amount of money which should be paid by one party to another, then that amount should be clearly mentioned in the contract, because that amount will create a right and a liability for one and other party. So it should be clearly mentioned in the numerical value as well as in the word format. If it is rupees 5 lakh, so it should be mentioned 500000 plus and in the rupee format like this. So consideration is important, And if you have already paid that consideration to the other party, then it should be clearly mentioned that other parties acknowledge the receipt of that particular consideration. This is receipt, consideration and receipt. You paid the amount, so it should be clearly mentioned somewhere na ki that other party has received it as well. So this is how you see the receipt of which the vendor do hereby admit and acknowledge. Why it is important? It is important because you need to mention it, that because if let's say there is a dispute later on arises, then in that case you can mention that I have paid this particular consideration, and as per the contract you can see that the other party has acknowledged the receipt of that particular consideration as well. Moving forward, operative clause. Now operative clause basically means that what is the type of a transfer that you are doing. Operative clause differs from situation to situation. For example, if you are making a mortgage deed, it will be mentioned that transfer by way of simple mortgage. Operative clause talks about your real nature of transaction, that what type of a transaction you are entering into. If it is a sale, then it will be mentioned that this agreement of sale, like this particular mention, transfer by way of sale, transfer by way of lease, all these words will be mentioned, and these are called operative clause. And real operative words which vary according to the nature of the property. So as I have already mentioned that it totally varies from type of an agreement which you are entering into. So lease agreement will have different operative clause, gift agreement will have different operative clause, every agreement has a different operative clause. Description of the property and parcel clause, you need to study them together. By description of the property, what I am trying to mention here is that you need to give complete detail of the property that you are transferring to the other party. By complete detail, like everything, you need to even mention how many gauges of that property, how many square feet that particular property is, where it is located, whether it has any encumbrances in it. Encumbrance we will discuss in the next slide, that what does it mean, and you should basically give all the details of the property. So let's see that full description of the property is advantages, that it becomes easier to locate the property in the government record as well, and whether it is free from encumbrances. Encumbrances basically means that it is free from any claim, that it is not a disputed property, it is free, and the person who is selling that particular property has all the rights over the property. So it is very important to give full description of your property. For example, if I am buying a particular property in North Delhi, so I will mention that this is my particular house number located here between these two particular houses. So you are giving a complete detail of the property, you are not missing out on a single fact as well. Parcel clause is the extended version of the description of the property. Here you give technical expression of the property, like you mention what are its measurement, tenements, handments, land, water, etc. These are all few technical terms which a property has. The basically giving a technical description of a property is form part of parcel clause, right? But for your information, I would like to share one thing, that as per Transfer of Property Act section 8, when you are transferring a particular property to someone, it is assumed that you are mentioning each and everything. It is so you need not to clearly write it in a deed. It is assumed in our court of law that if you are transferring a particular property, so your intention is to transfer it completely and it will be free of encumbrances. But still we suggest that if you are writing a particular deed, so you should mention about all these things. So now let's move forward. So now we have in front of us is the exception and reservation clause. This clause basically provides some sort of a rights to the transferor over the property. What he can do is he can put some restrictions upon the transferee, but those restrictions should be lawfully valid. I'll give you an example for exception and reservation clauses. For example, if I am entering into a lease agreement between the parties. In the lease agreement, the landlord used to put some sort of restrictions upon the transferee, and those restrictions can be in the form of, for example, I am asking the tenant to not to park the car in front of his house, because this is a restriction which is a valid restriction and it can be put upon the tenant, so he has to follow it. So it's not like if you are entering into an agreement you cannot put any restriction. Definitely you can put some restriction, but you have to make sure that the restrictions that you are putting upon the other party, those restrictions should be lawfully valid, and if by chance those restrictions are not lawfully valid, so they will be declared void and they will not stand in the court of law. Next we have in front of us is the habendum clause. Habendum clause is the part of a deed which basically provides that which interest you are transferring into the other party, what interest you are giving to him. For example, as we are talking about lease agreement only, so in lease agreement the other party is to have and to hold the possession of the property. Obviously he will have the possession as well as the enjoyment of the property. By enjoyment I mean that he can use that property as to his convenience, provided there are not some restrictions put up by the landlord, lawful restrictions. So habendum clause provides what actual interest you are going to hold in that particular property. So the word here is mentioned, it states the interest the purchaser is to take in the property. So habendum clause is clear now. It start by this clause, that to have and to hold. For example, if you see in a particular deed this word is mentioned, to have and to hold, you should be able to understand and identify that this particular clause is the habendum clause. Now redendum clause. Redendum clause is specifically made to the lease agreement. It cannot be used for any other agreement. The reason for the same we will see now, that because here it is mentioned the mode and time fixed for the payment of rent. Through redendum clause you can fix the time and payment of the rent as well as the mode, that what particular mode is for the payment you are using. Now the word here uses rent, and rent is commonly used for the lease agreement. Next we have in front of us is the covenant and undertakings. Covenant basically means a promise that one party is making to the other party. I'll just give you a simple example of a covenant. I hereby covenant that this property is free from the encumbrances, and by encumbrances I mean that this property is not disputed, there are no pending any tax liability on the property, and it is free to transfer by the lawful owner. So I hereby covenant. By covenant, what do I mean? I hereby promise. Even if you find in the general dictionary the term covenant mean you are making a certain promise to the other party. You are mentioning that this property is free from all the restrictions, there are no restrictions. If we are talking about a lease agreement, the landlord will covenant that this property has not been let to any other person. So landlord will say, I hereby covenant that this property is not leased to anyone else. And if I am a, let's say, tenant, so I will say that I hereby covenant you to pay this amount of rent from this particular date. So covenant and undertaking, both these terms are used interchangeably and they can be used together. And by undertaking you mean that other party is undertaking some sort of a responsibility. I'll give you an example of undertaking as well. By undertaking, I hereby means that for example, let's say in undertaking, landlord is saying that I hereby undertake to provide you furniture for the property. Now he is making a particular promise, right? He is undertaking that he will provide furniture to the tenant for that particular property. So these are how you mention some promises and undertaking, and they form part of deed as well. It is not necessary that all the deeds will have these points, but most of the deeds that you will find will have covenants and undertaking clause. Now the most important and the final part of a deed is this testimonium. Testimonium is the clause which is the last part of the deed. I'll mention in this portion that where is that particular testimonium part. Testimonium signifies that the parties to this particular document have signed the deed. And how do we start this particular testimonium? This is the way. This is your testimonium clause. So I'll just clear it a bit. Yeah. So in this testimonium clause, you mention that in witness whereof, and you need to learn it. You need to learn this particular line because this is the only line that you have to mention. You cannot write any other way of testimonium. In witness whereof, the vendor and the purchaser have set their hands to the agreement. By set their, like by this, of the sale of this particular property on this particular date in the presence of this. So by testimonium clause, you mentioned that all the terms and the conditions are being finalized, and now in witness whereof, that is in the presence of the witness, the purchaser and the seller are now agreeing to this agreement on this particular date, and they will put their signature and attestation. That is our next clause. After writing this particular point, like in witness whereof the parties hereto have signed this deed on the date above written. This clause you need to mention as it is. This clause. All these clauses may vary from different type of a deed. However, if we talk about your description of title deed, description of parties, name and place of the deed, recitals, this testatum clause, testimonium clause, these clauses you should learn by your heart because these will be common in most of the agreements that you will draft. Other than this is the signature and attestation clause. Basically, the parties will sign this particular agreement in presence of the witness. The witness will also sign this particular contract. Moving forward, these are few different terms which are also form parts of a deed, but they are not very commonly used. So we will just understand their meaning and then we will see how they move. Endorsement. Endorsement, first of all, I would like to tell you that endorsement has two meanings. So first one is that endorsement means writing on the back or a face of a document where it is necessary in relation to the contents of that particular document or an instrument. For example, you must have seen that people used to write on the back of a check. I'll give you an example. I am Mr. A. I have to make certain payment to Mr. B. I gave him that check. Now Mr. B is the payee of that particular check. Now he wants to make payment to someone else. For that, he will write on the back of the check that I am the payee and I want that Mr. C should be able to withdraw money through this check. So that means writing on the back of the instrument. I am endorsing that particular check in favor of someone else. I am endorsing that negotiable instrument in favor of someone else. So you can see that, for example, on the back of the check, to sign one's name as payee to obtain cash is an endorsement of the check. Other than this endorsement and supplementary deed basically means that when you want to introduce some new facts to a deed. For example, it might happen that you made a deed in the past. Now you want to add some facts to it. It may happen that you want to amend that particular deed. So you make those amendments to the deed through endorsement or through a supplementary deed. Supplementary deed is nothing else, it's just another deed on the same facts and circumstances, including some new facts. So I'll just read it out for you once. It is a document which is entered between the parties on the same subject. The subject is the same on which the prior document already exists. This is important. There should be a prior main document to which you are making a supplementary deed, which will add new facts and documents, and the parties have agreed to this, right? So basically, supplementary deed is a supplement to the main document in which you will mention some new facts and circumstances. The last part of a deed is the annexures and schedule. By annexures, you can basically provide the details or some documentation which are required for your deed. For example, if you are talking about a sale agreement, if a sale agreement you are talking, you should be giving proper description of the property. Now that proper description will form part of this schedule. Like you will mention that this is the schedule of that particular property. In the end, you will mention all the details. And by annexure, you might attach some documents which are required by the parties. So all these extra documents that you are attaching with your deed will be called annexures. and schedule provides some sort of extra detailing you want to mention in the end. So these are all the components. Now I think you have got a better idea about what are all the components. Now at last we will see that agreement for sale which we have seen in our earlier slide, and at that point of time we were not able to identify each and every point, but now I think we will be able to identify each and every component for that particular deed. So let's move forward. Now this was the sale agreement that we were discussing earlier as well. You can see this is an agreement for sale. This is title description made on this particular date. This is time and place between Mr. S and other party. This is the description of the parties. Till here they have given description of the parties. And whereas these are your recitals. They have clearly mentioned that he is the absolute owner and now they intend to sell and buy that particular property. This was the testatum clause. This was the testatum clause that we were mentioning. After these all are your terms and condition. I'll just mention few out for you. These were related to consideration. They were talking about what all consideration and receipt clause that we have studied there as well. All these are the covenants that the parties are entering into between. These are basically the covenants and undertakings that they are taking. Why we don't have any reddendum habendum in it? Because reddendum is specifically for lease agreement, so it's a sale, so it will not form part of it. Habendum clause, to have and to hold, that is clearly mentioned that what all rights you are transferring to the other party. And this was the scheduled that I was talking to. You can mention this scheduled after witnessing clause as well. That is perfectly fine. In witness whereof, this is your testimonium clause. This you have to learn by your heart, that in witness whereof the parties have agreed to sign this particular agreement. These are the witnesses signs and these are the signature of your parties, vendor and buyer seller, whoever are the parties to this particular agreement. So now you can see that in this particular sale agreement, in this particular agreement for sale, there were so many components of a deed that were present, right? So now what I want you to take a sample of few agreements or deeds. You can take a mortgage deed, that will be a good learning for you. You can take a lease deed, that will be a good learning for you. You can see that what all components are provided in that, and this is how you will be able to learn all the components. So I think through this video you were able to understand that what do we mean by deed, what are the differences between agreement and a deed, what are the components of a deed, and how you basically draft a particular deed. So thank you all for watching this video. I hope you liked it. Please subscribe to my channel, and for any other query you can write in the comment box. Thank you.